I had a wonderful time at the Critchfield Law Firm, at, but by that time, Jeannie and I had had a second son, Rob, and he was getting a little older, and Donald was coming along, and I started looking at those boys and saying, why, pretty soon I'm going to be constrained by a school calendar. Those guys are going to go to school, and the only time I can take off and take a vacation with them will be when they're on vacation. And Jeannie and I talked about it, and then we decided to take what we came to call the adventure. I gave the Critchfield Law Firm at least, I must have given them 3 months' notice, because I had a very busy practice and I needed to slow it down. I needed to transfer the cases to those guys. They needed to hire somebody to take my place. And I worked very hard to make it a good, reasonable departure, but the net result was that Jeannie and I sold our house, bought a van, and loaded our boys in the van, and took off and spent 9 months and 30,000 miles touring the West.
Wow.
And
How old are the kids?
The kids were 5 and 3.
So early 1970s?
Yes. We took off, the adventure started mid-December 1971 and lasted until September of 1972. And we went straight to California, to where my brother was teaching. My brother and sister-in-law were both teaching at the University of California at Santa Cruz, a more beautiful campus you've never seen. You know, in the redwoods overlooking the Pacific Ocean, hard to beat. And then we went down the Pacific coast. We came across Arizona and ended up in New Mexico. I know we made a beeline for the Carlsbad Caverns because I wanted to see the Carlsbad Caverns. We skied several places in New Mexico. I had the scariest moment I've ever had on skis. Well, the problem was I wasn't on the skis. I started down a hill and it became clear that it was practically glare ice. And I managed to get a few turns in, and then I slipped and fell. And I was laying on my stomach and going faster and faster down the hill. And I'm looking down the hill at this ski lodge that I'm heading toward, and I'm saying to myself, I'll make an awful mess when I hit that ski lodge. And then I said, oh no, we're going to go in the woods. I mean, I had no control whatsoever. And I saw a tree coming, and I rolled onto my back to avoid hitting this tree and landed on my back in a great big pile of snow. And I'm laying there, and people on the chairlift are yelling, are you all right? Are you? And then fortunately, there was a path that went off of that ski slope. I was able to get away from there. But
you weren't hurt?
No, wasn't hurt a bit. I'm scared to death. but I wasn't hurt.
Did you ever find the skis?
That was back in the days of Arboro straps, so the skis were strapped to my boots, and those skis came right along with me. Yeah, but if I'd had those snow brakes we have today, who knows where those skis would have ended up. we eventually ended up in Salt Lake City, and I think we went to Salt Lake City to meet Jeannie's mother, who flew out to visit with us, and we from Salt Lake we went down to Lake Powell, and I remember renting a speedboat on Lake Powell, and we took the speedboat from Page, Arizona, up to, well, I guess the town is called Waweep. That's Waweep, or that's where the marina is. In any event, we took it up to the Rainbow Bridge, which is, I don't know, about 40 miles from the marina. Lake Powell is just the most beautiful lake, and at that time it was full. Well, it's not very full anymore, but that time it was full, and so you could take the boat literally right up to where the Rainbow Bridge is now, or where the Rainbow Bridge has been for millions of years. And but the remarkable thing that happened to us was the other boats that had been there left. There was a tour boat that had been there, and it left. We were the last boat out through this complicated passage back out to the mainstream. Going through that passage, all of a sudden, the boat stopped. The outboard engine stopped. They had gas, and I had the cover off that thing, and my mother-in-law was diabetic. So being stuck on Lake Powell with a diabetic lady didn't sound to me like a very good situation. And I'm trying to get this motor started and not having much luck. And all of a sudden, the park ranger showed up in another boat. And he got on the radio and called the tour boat and told them to turn around and come pick us up, and towed me and our boat to the dock for the Rainbow Bridge. We tied it up and told the people that rented it to us to come get their boat. And the tour boat took us back to the tour boat was run by the same people that had rented us the boat, so they provided a ride for us because their boat fare broke down. But that was a scary moment.
Yeah.
Fortunately, it didn't last very long. And then we went down to the Grand Canyon, and it was February. And because we had my mother-in-law with us, she took care of the boys one day, and Jeannie and I hiked down the Bright Angel Trail all the way to Indian Garden, which is the bottom of the outer canyon. And we hiked from winter to spring. February, 8,000 feet. There was a couple feet of snow on the ground at Grand Canyon Village. When we got down to Indian Garden, it was spring and the birds were singing, and it was it was a remarkable change. And it was also remarkably difficult to get back out of there.
How many thousand feet did you go down?
About half a mile.
Wow.
About 2,500 vertical feet. So we had to go 2,500 vertical feet back up.
Yeah.
And then we took Grace back to, I think we took her to Las Vegas for her to catch a plane. And then we retraced our steps and ended up back in Salt Lake City. And then I remember crossing the Continental Divide in Colorado. We were going to go over Loveland Pass, and everything seemed fine until we came up and there was a Coors beer truck in front of us, stopped. And I got out and looked, and there was a line of traffic in front of the Coors beer truck. So I walked up and asked the driver of the Coors beer truck how long this kind of thing was liable to last. He said, "Oh, could be all day, could be tomorrow before we." And so there was a motel right there, and of course it was already full. But I went over and just asked them if I could give them $10 for a place to plug in. They had a heater, an electric heater in the van, and I said sure. And I plugged in, and we just parked in their parking lot and camped for the night.
How big was this van?
It was a standard Chevrolet van of that era, and we had there were 2 seats in front and a small seat in between those 2 seats that had seat belts for the boys. The boys were little guys, so they sat on this relatively little seat, and they could see out.
So they were in the front with you?
Yes.
Yeah,
Nice. So the
yeah.
4 of us were in the front,
Yeah.
and the back was just a big bed that had been built up, I don't know, 14 inches maybe, and we stored everything, all our gear, underneath, and slept on the top, and it was all in sections, so you pick things up and get at the place where we stored things. It worked well.
Yeah. Was this adventure sort of like something you'd never done before in terms of just driving around the country?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. It was my chance to go see all the great sights of the West, and we pretty much did it.
Sounds like it.
To be able to spend 2 weeks in Yellowstone before the crowds get there, that's pretty special.
Yeah.
In any event, we were camping in this parking lot, and we heard about midnight, all the trucks fired up and started up over the pass. We just stayed there. Next morning, we got up, rolled up our sleeping bag, and started up over the pass. And we got over the pass, and we were starting down the other side, and there was some kind of a bus with one of his back wheels, hanging over the back edge of the road. I mean, he couldn't go because he was really in trouble. I don't know what they did with him, but all the traffic was backed up behind him all the way down the pass, and it was a Saturday morning because people were headed to the ski slopes. They were not going anywhere. A lot of frustrated people. And then we camped in Boulder for several days, then back to Salt Lake City and skied in Aspen, skied in Vail. Oh, we just had a magnificent time. Went up to Yellowstone, went to Glacier, went on up to Banff, and then we went to Vancouver, went to Vancouver Island. I still have a cousin who fled the United States to avoid the draft for Vietnam, and at that time he was a baker, and he ran a little bakery in a place called Alert Bay, British Columbia, which was an island in the Johnston Strait in between Vancouver Island and the mainland. And we managed to get on a ferry boat and go visit him. And then my parents wanted to come out, and they came out to to Banff, and we drove back and saw them, and then we went back and saw. We had such a good time with him. We went back and saw him again. I should explain the finances of this. It was that expense account. I'd been banking my paycheck for 2 years during the railroad case. And so we were doing fairly well in the old checking account. And that's how we financed this running around the countryside business. And we were not out of money yet.
So when you left to go on this adventure, you had ended your relationship with Critchfield. And
Right.
did you assume that when you finished doing your Jack Kerouac thing that you would come back and start a law firm in Worcester, or did you have any idea what was going to go on?
I had no idea. I had no idea. If you can call this a plan, the plan was to find someplace close to a ski area and practice law.
Oh.
That was what I was hoping. But I got out west and we toured the West. And I discovered that they have a whole body of law out there called water rights. And I said to myself, that's nuts. I come from a place where we got plenty of water. Nobody has to fight about water. We don't worry about water. There's plenty for everyone. Why would I want to live someplace where they've got a whole body of law related to water rights? And
You stopped looking for the law practices.
I became very disenchanted with this notion of living out west, because all of the West is consumed with this business of water rights, and it's going to get worse.